Hey guys, let's talk about Monday Night Raw. We start the show with a recap of last week and what happened with Bobby Lashley and him earning his spot at day one in this WWE title match. He earned it through facing Kevin Owens, Seth Rollins, and Big E, each individually. So after this recap, we do have Bobby Lashley and MVP come on out, and they're kind of going over how upset they were about him being disrespected, and that of course he should have been included in that match. Um, Throughout this, Big E first comes out, and they're talking, and eventually Kevin Owens and um, Seth Rollins come on out. This ends up, of course, leading to um, Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens attacking Bobby Lashley and Big E, who kind of mutually back them off, what have you. What this ends up doing is getting set for a tag match with Big E tagging with Lashley and Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens teaming. That's going to end up happening later. But I think it's an intriguing match for them to set up. It's not what we were probably expecting necessarily. Yeah. So we then have Bianca Belair and Doudrop. Um, both of them had some very strong moments in this match. I don't know that it was super long, but the impressive feat was Bianca Belair hitting the KOD, the Kiss of Death, on Doudrop. That is a pretty massive feat when you consider just size differences and the strength that it must take. Keep in mind, though, folks, like if they're doing something like this, that can be dangerous. Like it has to take a toll on their shoulders. If you'll remember back some of the moves that Nikki Bella did, they took a toll on her shoulders, having that much weight on there. And that can go in general. It doesn't even necessarily matter who it is. It's just literally having another body up there. Um, so I thought that was pretty impressive that she was able to hit that. Um, so we then have Austin Theory. He's in the back. He's kind of going through his phone, and he he's kind of going over what he did last week with, first of all, kind of distracting Finn Balor, and then taking the selfie when he when Finn lost the match. But what we're going to end up getting is Finn Balor taking on Austin Theory. Both of them got in good offense. They gave him quite a bit of time. But what did happen was Finn Balor picked the win with the coup de grace. There was no selfies this time. So we find out later exactly how that's sitting with Austin Theory having a loss. So then we see Miz backstage with Omos, and then AJ comes up. They chat for a little bit, and we're gonna get more on that because Omos and AJ seemed like they were on the same page. However, AJ and Omos had to go out for a match. But before that, they were actually going to be going out with Miz for a Miz TV segment. Essentially, through this Miz TV segment, what we're getting is Miz basically telling AJ that he didn't really necessarily talk to or listen to Omos or really get to know him and how he really truly felt, and that Omos had told him how upset he was about certain things and things like that. I got the impression, even though Miz can lead you on a story, and not necessarily always the truth, but rather try to play on people's emotions, so to speak. You get the impression from Omos's facial features that he probably actually maybe really was saying these things. At the end, AJ essentially just tells him, "You don't know what you're talking about. We're on the same page," and all of that. Well, pretty soon we end up getting the Mysterios interrupting because, well, they're going to have a match against Omos and AJ. So we have this match, and we don't even see Omos get into the ring. AJ's in there. He's going back and forth between Ray and Dominic, but Omos doesn't actually end up getting in the ring. And when he goes to tag in Omos, he ignores him. And this upsets AJ, and it kind of distracts him enough that the Mysterios pick up the win this way. AJ is very upset about this and is kind of yelling somewhat at Omos, if you want to call it that. But you get that impression that he is very upset, and I can understand it. And this is part of AJ's heel character, in that he didn't necessarily treat Omos the greatest, not like an actual person. He never took the time to truly talk to Omos to see how he truly felt. He just assumed that he knew how Omos felt and that he could just tell Omos what to do. And you could tell that Omos was kind of tired of that Omos had figured out that AJ didn't necessarily really care about him as a person, and that everybody was right that AJ was just using him. And that essentially is what was behind Omos finally saying, "You know what? You are holding me down. You are just using me. I'm over this. I'm done with this team." So Omos throws him around a little bit and essentially tells him that the next time he sees them, they're going to have a match. So I believe what I hear is that match is probably going to be happening next week, which is kind of a fun little match for Monday Night Raw, and I'm actually kind of looking forward to that. We then go back to the ring. We're going to get Randy Orton versus Chad Gable. Now, Otis is at ringside. However, Riddle is not. Randy has told Riddle to stay in the back, to watch him from back there, and watch what he does and how he does things. So Randy Orton ends up winning with an RKO. There's a lot of good back and forth. They gave them quite a bit of time, a decent amount. After the match, Orton tries to hit Otis with an RKO. It does not work. Otis is able to block it. That sends Orton out of the ring, and he just chooses to just leave and let it go. We then, for the next segment, we go backstage, and that is when Adam Pearce and Sonya make the match official for the tag team match with Rollins and KO taking on Bobby Lashley and Big E. So we then have Damian Priest taking on Dolph Ziggler. Now this is a contenders match. So what this means is if Dolph Ziggler wins, he gets an opportunity at Damian Priest's Intercontinental Championship, United States Championship. I'm sorry, excuse me. At the end of the day, Dolph Ziggler ends up winning. I don't remember if okay, it was by count. Okay. I knew it was either DQ or count out, something like that. And that's of course because Rude was distracting Damian Priest. So what this means is Dolph Ziggler wins, and we are going to get Dolph Ziggler versus Damian Priest for the United States Championship. We don't know when right now, and we could find out this week or next week on Raw that maybe that's going to happen at day one. It might not. Damian has been really good about putting that title on the line very frequently, doing open challenges and such. So that's kind of fun. So then we have Balor backstage, and he's being asked about his win, and while they're doing that interview, he ends up getting attacked by Austin Theory, who throws him around a little bit, pushes him against one of the equipment carts. With that being said, Theory then, of course, takes more selfies. That will come into play a little bit later here. We then return to the ring for the Cutting Edge segment. On the Cutting Edge, we get the Miz's wife, Maryse. So last week there was the segment where Edge is about to spear the Miz, and he pulls Maryse in front of him, using her essentially as a human shield. And she wasn't happy about this, and at the end of the day, slapped Miz and then stalked off. So what Edge wants to do is kind of get to the bottom of this, and Maryse kind of wanted to kind of get it off her shoulders as well. Her feelings about the whole thing. So that's what we're going to end up getting. But we go to commercial break, and when we come back, we're in Vince McMahon's office. He is with Austin Theory. He apologized for losing the match, but then made sure he understood that he got Finn Balor back for that. I don't know if he showed him the actual selfies. Essentially, what though Vince says, I like the aggression. I like that you got retribution, but you still lost the match. And then he says, well, maybe I should fire you. We all know that Vince is not going to fire Austin Theory, at least not at this stage. You know that you're doing something right when you're getting the opportunity to work with the chairman. Um, so he's gonna give. So Vince says he's gonna give Theory another chance, though, in the form of a rematch next week. So we'll see what ends up happening there, but we are definitely going to get another Balor versus Theory match. Um, he then goes into how important the eraser is and that it can be used to essentially erase someone's career and that kind of thing, and how sometimes with a loss, a win can be like that eraser and erasing kind of that loss and the stain that that maybe would put on someone's career. Um, so there is that. We then head back to the ring where we're getting ready for the cutting edge. And Maurice is going on about how she was really upset about this and that Edge could have really hurt her and he didn't. And that she appreciated that more or less as the gist of it. And that if he had, what would have happened? Who would have, who would have taken care of her kids? And she goes into the things that she does, the cooking and all of these things, and who's going to do those things if she had been hurt. And she then asks him, would you have ever done this to your wife, Beth? And it's at this moment that Edge can see something in her eyes, and he's not falling for it. He understands that this was a setup, that she's really faking how upset she is and faking the tears that appear to be coming. And he doesn't necessarily buy it. At the end of the day, he says, no, I would not have done that to Beth. I respect her. And he starts Brady Maurice for essentially taking Mrs. back on this and not holding him accountable for doing something like this. That she's worth more than this, than the Miz using her as a human shield. Um, but that he doesn't believe the tears, and he knows that this was just a setup to get him out there so that Miz could sneak up from behind him. Well, he then calls Miz out, and he's watching the entrance ramp as Miz's music hits, but he catches on that Miz is behind him. Um, at the end of the day, though, because of a hit by Maurice, and it was with her purse, Miz is still able to get the skull crushing finale in. Um, People have mixed feelings about this because typically, when a baby face figures out that a heel is setting them up and actually circumvents the sneak attack, you don't usually get the heel being able to get their finisher in on them. Um, we still don't know if Maurice and Beth are going to necessarily come into play on this. Now, for the build up for it, Maurice is coming into it, and Beth's name has been brought into it. But Beth herself has not been brought into the build up to this physically. A lot of people would like to see a mixed tag match between Miz and Maurice and Beth and Edge. I would I would be intrigued by it. I would be perfectly okay with it. Um, as long as they give them the time that they deserve. At the end of the day, these are women who performed in the ring and know what they're doing. Both Beth and Maurice. You can really allow them to go in the ring if you really wanted to. What that means is all four of these people have incredible talent and they can put on a show stopping match if you let them. Um, I don't know if we get that here or if potentially maybe they do that at a later time and they continue this feud potentially. We'll, I guess, find out more throughout the week and next week when we have the go home show for uh, the day one pay per view there on Raw. So the next match ends up being Queen Zelina versus Rhea Ripley. Now, both Carmella and Nikki ASH have been banned from ringside. So they are not out there. They will not be out there. There's a lot of back and forth here. There were a couple times that it really could have went either way. But at the end of the day, Rhea Ripley ends up picking up the win with a riptide. And that's essentially kind of where that leaves it. So we then go backstage and they're interviewing Big E, and she's asking if he can work with Bobby Lashley. And at first, he tells her, we can at the very least coexist. I'm not happy with the sneak attack by MVP, but if it means shutting Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens up, I can work with him. So that's how that kind of played out. So then we then go to Liv Morgan coming out to the ring. She has a kendo stick. Now, this is important because of what we have seen over social media throughout the week, and that is Becky Lynch last week had said that she was going to go train. So Liv Morgan knew where she was probably going to be training at. Understands that Becky and Seth have a private training facility, and that's probably where she would be. Liv Morgan made her way there and kind of snuck in, and there was someone that appeared to be Becky in the ring. And Liv Morgan would hit this person with a kendo stick. And I believe it was just one time, because at that point, Liv figured out that it wasn't Becky. Because Becky was kind of 2 steps ahead of her and had someone else there in place, knowing that she might get sneak attacked. But Becky is behind Liv and gets kind of a one-up on her. That leads into a kind of scuffle there at this training facility. At the end of the day, there is a good promo between these two, and Liv wants Becky to come in the ring, and she's like, I'm not stupid. I'm not coming to the ring with you when you've got a kendo stick and flinging it around. And Liv's like, she's like, this isn't for me. I brought this for you. So she claims she's going to break Becky's face at day one and take her Raw Women's Championship. I'm actually really looking forward to this. I really have my suspicions that Liv is going to get the win at the pay-per-view. And as much as I'm a fan of Becky, I'm okay with this. It is time for Liv to be able to shine. I thought the promo went off really good, and we will see what ends up happening. We then get our main event, Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins taking on Bobby Lashley and Big E. There, of course, was a lot of back and forth. You have 4 very good, tough competitors in the ring. There was a spear by Bobby Lashley that accidentally hits Biggie. We don't see anything coming of this though, which is kind of weird. And I say that because we might get something next week where Biggie might make mention of the accidental spear, but it could just be that Biggie respects the fact that he knows it was an accident. Um, at the end of the day, Bobby Lashley and Biggie end up coming up with the win there on that one. Seth is making a big deal about how he thinks that he broke up the pin. Um, I don't. I would have to. I think. I guess rewatch it more carefully to see whether or not he really had. But there was an attack afterwards. Rollins attacked Lashley. Um, they were really actually just going after Lashley, though. They didn't really go after Big E until a little bit more afterwards. Owens ended up going after him, but Rollins and Big E just started attacking Lashley and Big E afterwards. They seemed kind of suspicious of each other, but at the end of the day, congratulated each other on getting some revenge after losing the actual tag match. Um, I might end up eventually going back and rewatching that. I really don't think he beat the 3 count, but he might have. Um, so that is Monday Night Raw. We'll see you guys later.